Homer led the league in tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Grayson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22.
10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, Dancy, all around. Throw it as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver. You're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
Shady Sports, great to be back here for this episode of Around the Indoor World. I'm in for Shady today. He's he has some other things to do. He's still recovering from the loss, but it's good to be back this morning. I kind of want to dive right in. TJ, how you doing this morning?
Yeah, pretty good. How about you?
Doing well. So, I want to dive right in, kind of AF1. We'll go down the list: AF1, NAL, IFL. But last night, the Albany Firebirds took on the Southwest Kansas Storm. 13 turnovers in 2 games, highly anticipated matchup, and Albany completely destroyed Southwest Kansas and their franchise last night. What was your reaction to the game?
I was a little surprised. I was hoping thinking it was going to go down to the wire. It started off like that. Albany got a deuce off the kickoff. South Kansas, they went right down the field, scored, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be a back and forth game. But after that point, it was pretty much all Albany. It seemed like every time Southwest Kansas had an opportunity to maybe get back into it, it's just Albany, shut the door somehow, some way, forcing interceptions, fourth down fails. It was just, unfortunately, it seemed like last night Albany was in a class of their own.
No, I agree. I think, Southwest is a good team, but I don't think they're ready to compete with that upper echelon in the league right now. There's Billing, there's Albany, and then there's Southwest, right? And the gap, we saw it last night, I think is pretty huge. One thing I want to touch on is Daquan Bailey-Brown, star receiver for Southwest Kansas, one of the best kick returners in the AF1. He announced last night at about 1 a.m. that he's projected to be out for the season with a torn Achilles. What's your reaction to that news, and how do you think it affects Southwest Kansas in the long term?
He's a big piece, kick returner, wide receiver. They were already, just from last night, already having trouble moving the ball net. Then you lose one of your main weapons, potentially for the year, unfortunately. It didn't necessarily, the hit didn't look bad, but then after the play, when he was just staying on the turf, had to be helped up. Hey, give props to Albany. One of their players helped him off the field because clearly he couldn't put any weight on that leg. But yeah, as soon as I saw that, I was fearing that it would be, something like this, like basically a season-ending injury or close to it. It's just very unfortunate. But so is football, and unfortunately, it's next man up mentality for Southwest Kansas.
Definitely, and they put Charles Hall in the game, right? Tight end, wide receiver mix to kind of replace him, and I thought he played pretty well. But I don't know if he's really ready to step into that number 1 receiver role. They have Shiloh, Flanagan. He's a great receiver, but he's still learning the arena game, right? He's a rookie. So I think they need to bring in someone with veteran experience who's available, who can come in and kind of, teach the young guys the way. I know they have D. Wash out there, but another vet I think would help them in the long term. I think my final point for this game is straight up question. Is Sam Castanova the greatest arena and indoor quarterback of all time?
He's definitely up there. I would definitely put him probably in the top 5. For me, it's just hard being pretty much a lifelong arena football fan. I remember seeing Aaron Garcia, Clint Dawzell, sling it around. Mark Reeb for San Jose for years. So I don't know if I could call him the number one, but he's definitely in conversation for the Mount Rushmore of guys. That's for sure.
I agree. I think a guy, we have a lot of discussion when a guy dominates in one league, can they do it in another league at a high level? I mean, he's done it AF1, IFL, NAL. I think modern times, like you said, I think he's the greatest quarterback out there right now. So, moving on, obviously, NAL last night, Columbus Lions versus Carolina Cobras. I know as an offensive guy, you were having nightmares watching that game. Absolutely disgusting offensive performance by the Carolina Cobras, but I want to hear your thoughts from a coaching perspective.
Man, well, being former special teams and DBs, I do love some solid defensive play, especially in the secondary. But it was much like the AF1 game. You had two teams coming in, and one team was just better from start to finish. Obviously that one a little bit closer. 25-0. Yeah, they forced the shutout, but it's not as bad as letting up almost 80 points in a game either. So, but Columbus, you know, they've they've been pretty much running, back in, when they were in the AIF, they were running the league. Now the agreement for them to come back to the NAL, and they start off, last weekend an out of league exhibition game, do much of the same, pile a lot of points on. I believe they also shut out the Peach State Cats as well. So, coming into this game, it was, are they really that good? Or was it because it was just, an out of league opponent? Well, they're pretty good. Obviously, they can work on their offense a little bit. 25 points in a game is not going to win you a ton of arena football games on a normal outing. But last night, it was enough to have a dominant win. And for Carolina, they're sent back to the drawing boards, and they're probably set up for a very frustrating week this week of practice and film study.
Before I kind of dive into Carolina's performance, I wanted to bring up the stat for you and kind of get your reaction. Last year in the IFL, the the worst offense in the IFL with the Tulsa Oilers, they averaged 189.9 yards per game. Through 2 games, Carolina has averaged 132 yards per game. Do you think that speaks to the NAL, level of competition, or maybe how much the Cobras offense actually is weak and has struggled?
Mm. Well, back-to-back weeks, I mean, you don't want to jump the gun and think, we have a major issue. I mean, again, Columbus is, one of the best teams in the NAL right now. Uh, but, and they were able, Carolina was, to get a win last week, as opposed to obviously last night. But if I'd say give it 1 to 2 more games, if you are still heavily struggling, you want to probably, even in the arena game, probably still hit at least, around 250 a game of yards. You assume that's going to put you probably somewhere around the 40-point total. And then at the end of the game, you're either in the lead or you have a shot, if you score one more time, to retake the lead. That's what I've always kind of thought mindset wise with offensive production.
I agree with you. And, I kind of want to touch on, right, Darren Clark. I like Darren Clark. He's a great guy, great player. I think, he won't want to admit this, but he's kind of developing as a play caller, right? I think when you get thrown into it, this is only his, calling a professional game from an offensive standpoint, this is only his 4th game, right? So to expect he's going to be Seth Bonner, one day is kind of, an unreasonable expectation. I think he's learning the game. I also want to touch on the biggest thing with Carolina. Their offensive line is like they need changes immediately. I know their center, Demetric Anderson, former LFA star, was out last night. I think that really hurt them. What changes do you think Carolina needs to make on the offensive line to be competitive going forward?
I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, the quarterback was running for his life basically the entire game. I again, I don't know if you kind of have to reopen up competition in terms of depth, but make it known basically, hey guys, this is not the standard, not even close. All right, we need you guys way better than this. And if you guys don't get better real fast, like the next game, we're going to start bringing in guys that potentially can overtake you and actually protect our quarterback, because you can be the greatest quarterback in the world. If your offensive line gives you absolutely no protection or is constantly allowing guys to come in like within a second and a half off the snap count, you're not going to survive as the quarterback, and your team's probably not going to do that well. I know that from experience.
Um, last thing with the Cobras game, right? I want to talk about the quarterback going forward, right? Vincent Espinoza, Dominic Schaffner, number 19, he came in towards the end of the game. If you were the head coach, who would be starting next week?
I mean, loyalty in sports isn't exactly a known thing, and it's very easy to go over the line and be too loyal and have it end up costing you and your team a lot of things. But I think you're 1-1. You won one game to open up the season. Obviously, last night you got kind of smacked around. I think you have to stick with your listed starter, and if they are unable, or if they're looking like they're off to a rough start again next week, probably at halftime or so, assuming the game is still in reach, then make your switch. And so I I've always been I absolutely hate you know you see it a lot in college where guys doing good for a couple games, 5, 6 games, then he has a bad game, then he gets benched. It's I think that's jumping the gun. But again, if it does become a repeat thing, then you have to reevaluate and say, okay, is he hurting us more than he's helping us at this point?
I love what you said. I think the last thing I have to say is, I was gonna go in on Carolina this morning, but I really thought about it. I'm like, you know what? They have Columbus again next week, and then they have Wheeling twice. They have Wheeling once, and then a bye. I think at the bye week, if we continue to see the same performance, I think there's gonna be serious changes and maybe even serious coaching changes. So I think it's something to look out for going forward with Carolina. I want to move to the IFL games. I don't want to talk about one specific game. We'll do that last, but we'll talk about Quad City and Green Bay. I didn't have a chance to watch the game fully. I'm going to go back and watch it today, but Quad City did win 39-37. Did you have a chance to watch the game, and what were your thoughts?
I did not pay for the IFL network, so I just kept tabs on it. From what you guys were talking about in the network chat, and just obviously, what they were updating on the IFL Facebook page. Hey man, that was a really good game. Compared to the two that I was watching, that one probably would have been a better option to watch. Down to the wire. But again, unfortunately, I didn't get the paywall. So
Yeah, the IFL has yet to update stats for that game either, so it's kind of hard to read into the game script. But I want to say that I think I know 39-29, I believe, with a minute left, and I think Green Bay did score a touchdown. So I think that rule where under 1 minute they have to advance the ball in order for the clock to move. I think that's an amazing rule. I think every arena league should have that, because it makes it competitive. It makes fans want to stay till the end. What do you think about that rule from a fan perspective?
I love it, man. It's throwback. That's what the original AFL used to do. And really, that's what every league, even the pop-up leagues, used to do. It used to just be a mainstream rule. Then they went away with it, and I was kind of disappointed because, like you just stated, it is so much more exciting than you have a back and forth game going down to the wire, and then all this build up and anticipation, and then a couple kneel downs and game over. That's like, man, where's the there's no cool down phase there. It's just instant. You're going from running to just up. Now we're sitting, we're done. So I do like that rule. And like it was proven last night, it does make a difference, and it can alter the difference in the game if you do actually still have to work for it. But it also still gives the team that's losing, that thought in the back of their head, like, hey, that just adds to the, hey, if we keep it close, anything is possible at the end of a game, and you're going to see amazing finishes like that. So I'm really happy they brought that rule back.
I think it just speaks to the IFL's willingness to innovate, right, and listen to fans. I think a lot of people that get on the IFL, the fans wanted that rule back, and they brought it back. And I think that's really amazing. Like, they're delivering for their fan base. They took it away last year, and you saw game flow towards the last minute. It got slow, right? It wasn't fun. It wasn't exciting. I would turn off the game. I'm like, oh, they can just take a knee down. Now you want to stay till the last minute. And when they talk about metrics, viewership numbers on the iPhone network, that's only going to help peak it, right? Because, they make money from how long people watch the game, not how many people watch the game, right? So if you watch the game for the full amount of time, they can monetize their content, and that's a whole nother business side of it. But I think that's a really smart rule to bring back with the network coming. Obviously, we have to talk about this game. It hurts, but my Massachusetts Pirates, right? We took a tough loss last night. The Jacksonville Sharks. Credit to them. I know you watched or you kept tabs on the game, and I know you thought Jacksonville was going to win, and you had your opinion. And so far, you've been right. I've been wrong the past couple of weeks. So, what do you think about the Jacksonville Sharks, and what do you think about the Pirates going forward?
Jacksonville, again, they've been a tough team. They're always seem to be in it for the most part. Last year was a little bit of a down year for them, but it seems like they're on the comeback here. Massachusetts, they are a team that is accustomed to changing a lot of things, specifically on the coaching staff standpoint. And sometimes it you can change it, and the move is appearing flawless. And then other times, you kind of, have a few hiccups and bumps in the road. For Massachusetts, hopefully that was the case last night, because, I saw the final score and I was kind of shocked. I expected them to keep it a little bit closer. I kind of thought it was going to be a last, maybe not last possession, but last couple. But, you know, uh, Jacksonville laid it on early and ran away with it.
Right. So, being there and kind of see it, I think our defense played amazing, right? We stopped them 4 times in the second half, right? And I think we were down by 3 scores. We did enough to come back on defense, right? We made stops. Caleb Barker threw 3 interceptions. But I think, from an offensive perspective, we were slow, we were sluggish, we didn't put points on the board, we didn't capitalize. I think Kenji Bahar is a good quarterback, but I think he needs to learn the indoor game, and he needs to learn it quick. A lot of his throws were wide, right? He needs to tighten up his throws. He needs to really get adjusted, because otherwise, I don't want to say otherwise, but obviously, like we talked about with Carolina, right? Changes will come if guys can't get adjusted, right? It's the same thing here. Puka Williams, someone who I was really high on, a running back for us from Kansas. I thought Puka performed really well. You could tell he hasn't played football in a year. He looked a little slow at times. He got leveled a few times, but he came back. He kept fighting, scored 3 touchdowns. I'm happy for Puka. I think he's going to continue to evolve and improve as the season goes on. He'll get in shape. I think players get in shape. Most players, I would say 80% of the time, get in shape as the season goes on, right? You just have to get in the flow of it. I think the same thing with Kenji. I think he'll learn the game. I think Jacksonville is an amazing team. They're incredible. They really put on a show offensively. The way they used Jason Gibson's ability to utilize Jimmy Robinson, amazing. Like, he's not even like their vocal point on offense, but he sets up blocks, he makes plays, he gets him involved, and I just think that's so creative. And, I think Jimmy on this new team doesn't have to worry about carrying the ball 15, 20 times, right? Jimmy's getting older, right? He's 29 now, so he can kind of take a lighter load, but still have a huge impact on the game. I think that's incredible. Their offense looked great. Their defense, credit to Coach Clay Harrell down there. He's made the changes. Their defense, that team's going to be really good going forward. I'm looking forward to watching them. I believe next week they play the Vegas Nighthawks for their first home game, which is going to be amazing. So I'm super excited to watch Jacksonville going forward. But I think for us, we just need to get back to drawing board. Coach Griggs talked about it after the game. Changes here and there, but I think we'll be fine going into next week against Quad City. And I want to preview that game with you, right? Massachusetts versus Quad City, Friday night next week. Which team do you think has the advantage, and which team do you project coming out on top?
In which game?
Massachusetts Quad City next week.
I mean, I mean, I got to go. Unfortunately for you, I got to go with the eye test, and the eye test is, Quad City should probably have the edge in that one. You know, it's hard. It's kind of hard picking against Massachusetts because they don't often, get beat back to back times embarrassingly. So if anything, it should go down to the wire. But for some reason, I just feel in my gut like Quad City's going to pull it out in the end.
I see why you think that, right? Quad City, they returned 2 of 3 of their starting offensive linemen. Daquan looked good last night. I think the defense is similar. I believe they have 5 out of 8 started back on defense, if I'm not mistaken. So right there, consistency there. And I think, it's easy to pick Quad Cities going into next week. For me, obviously being a Pirates fan, obviously I'm biased, but I think we're going to make changes. And last night, I know you might have not seen, but we had a DB playing linebacker, right? So we had a DB who's 5'10" playing the linebacker spot, right? He's under 200 pounds. He played great. He's a local kid, played amazing. But I think we're going to get a real linebacker back there next week. We had Jamoy Hodes from TCU. He made the dumb decision to go to Mexico, right? So we need to find someone to replace him, but we'll find someone. I believe there's a lot of good linebackers out there. I know they're looking at linebackers. We already have linebackers on the team. We just need to figure out how to work them in. So I think we'll be fine. I think the offense will get it right. I think the play calling will get better. There's certain things behind the scenes. I'm going to leave behind the scenes, but I think, the play calling will get better. And I think I'm excited to see next week. I really think we're going to come out the gate strong. We're going to make the change we need to make. Our offensive line, I thought, looked good. I think Coach Mosley did a great job. We had a 1-starter, Nick Ford. He made his first start. I thought he played great. So I think we have a lot of potential on the offensive side. I think Kenzie, if he's back there next week, I think he's going to be able to progress, hopefully. So I got us, coming out on top. But I think it'll be a close game. I can honestly see it going either way, really. I think Quad City is a great team, and so I'm really excited. I want to move into tonight's game, tonight's games. I want to start with Wheeling and Shreveport in the NAL. Wheeling at Shreveport. The Miners coming into this game 0-2, right after a tough loss in Carolina. Shreveport is coming into this game 0-1 after a terrible loss to Omaha. I want to get your thoughts on the game, but the first question I want to ask, how surprised are you that Shreveport made no transactional moves on the offensive side of the ball, including quarterback? How surprised are you by that?
I'm not surprised at all. Like I said, I've never been one to jump the gun either after one bad performance. It has to carry for a little bit. One thing I don't want to say guarantee, but one thing that I would hope for if I was them was somebody has a short list, of quarterbacks, of, just basically every position where they're still a free agent per se, and you can bring them in if you need a change or, or a chance at an upgrade at that position. But the fact that they didn't actively sign anybody or bring anybody in to compete after one game, that's not too big of a surprise to me.
And then in terms of, I agree with you in some places when you say that statement about not bringing someone in, kind of letting the guy evolve in the system. I wanted to ask you, though, with the game specifically, Wheeling and Shreveport, who do you got winning the game, and what do you think the final score will be?
I'm gonna pick Wheeling, just because they need it the most. There's a big difference between 1-2 and 0-3. At 0-3, you're really starting to look up out of that hole that you dug yourself into. Uh, you know, they moved up in leagues. They've gotten their feet wet now. Now it's time to go out and put in the work that you have and start getting ahead of things. If they can win tonight, then they're right back on track. Obviously, they still have some work to do at 1-2, but if they can start rolling, it's not a big deal. You get to 0-3, 0-4, in terms of playoff race and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but that's a really, really deep hole to dig out of. So I see them pretty much playing this game tonight like almost like a playoff game already because they know they need to get that one in the win column.
So I agree. I think Wheeling is going to play hard. I think Reginaldo, Coach Rez, I think he's going to have the defense ready. I think the defense played amazing last game. I know people will see 41 points and kind of, get surprised by that, but their defense played really well. He held them to 20 points over 3 quarters. It was just the last quarter where they kind of got out of sync. But I think Wheeling's going to come out hot. I think the offense – Lyota, 6 points on offense last week wasn't impressive. So I think he knows, they need to make the necessary offensive changes. I'm looking for Wheeling to really try to get the run game going early, right? Early. Like, they need to really get the tempo up early. They need to get Grant Russell involved, short game, quick game, early, kind of get his head back in it. And I think Wheeling will be fine. I think Wheeling will win this game by 2 scores easily. I got them winning this game. I think maybe 40-30, I could see. I think it'll be a good game. The big game tonight, one I'm really excited for, the one that I'll be watching, most of the time, other than the Wheeling game, is San Antonio Gunslingers versus the Tulsa Oilers. TJ Edwards with Malik Henry. How excited are you for this game?
Yeah, man. Well, I love TJ Edwards, so that shows where my alliances in the game. But yeah, I'm definitely bummed that again, I didn't get the IFL Network yet because that should be one heck of a matchup. Luckily for arena and indoor fans, there is a plethora of games to choose from tonight still. But if you have the ability, that one's definitely probably number one on your list.
So I'll say this, right? I think San Antonio going out and signing Malik Henry. Malik, my dog, and I love Malik. I think he's, top 2 quarterback in the game right now. I think he's amazing. He can make all the throws. But him and Coach Fuller linking back up in San Antonio with that receiving core, it's about to go up. That offense is going to, I believe, retain that number 1 spot in the league, if not be a top 3 offense. Defensively, they made some changes, right? They added Dante Dixon out of UNLV. I'm excited to watch him. He's a young DB. Chris Page, right? Chris Page was the best DB in the NAL in 2023. Chris Page is the real deal. He's an amazing DB. I'm interested to see how he adjusts to the indoor game, though. I know it can be different, but Chris Page is real. Yurt Jones, right? Yurt Jones is amazing, right? He's played at Northern Arizona, Arizona Bandits, Arizona Rattlers, Jacksonville Sharks. He's been all over the place. I think Yurt is a great D lineman. He understands the game. He's a game wrecker. The biggest concern for me for Tulsa is their running back room, right? Jimmy Smith out for the year. Martez Carter refused to report. That's not really, the biggest surprise to me that Martez didn't show up to camp, but for other reasons outside of football, I think their running back room is I want to see who's going to be running the ball for them tonight. I think TJ is going to have to play a huge – TJ always, plays a huge factor in the run game, but I think TJ is going to have to run the ball like 15 times at least, right? I think if they want to 15 to 17 times if they want to have a chance to compete. This year for Tulsa, for me, this game is big, right? I think Marvin Jones, this is his 4th season, right, back there. And for me, from an ownership perspective, I love Coach Jones. I think he's amazing. I think he's a great player. But this is a make-or-break year for Marvin Jones as a head coach. I really believe that. I think the team needs to make the playoffs. They have too many pieces. They went out and they finally got that upper echelon quarterback that they needed, right? They got Calvin Bundy, local hero, back on the team. Josh Crockett. The receiving core, they have Josh, Cole Blackman, and, Faison McClurge obviously going to UFL. So they'll bring in Sheldon Augustine or Max Novak, who will play that number 3 spot. It's going to be really interesting. I got San Antonio winning this game by 10 points, honestly. I think another 10-point game. And we got a comment right here. So maybe my brother may have chemistry. I think they do. Obviously they're brothers, right? They train together in the offseason. But the biggest thing is that Malik Henry was named starter, right? And I think they're comfortable with Malik because of his experience in the system. Right, he's played with Coach Fuller for 2 years. He knows the system. He knows what reads to make. So I think Malik's going to do great. The big news for San Antonio, last thing about them is that DJ Myers and Glenn Gibson will be the starting receivers tonight. Naquan Murray and Khalil Rashad are both out on short-term IR. First 2 games, I think it's going to be interesting. But I still think they'll win the game. I'm high on San Antonio this year, and I think it's because they went out and they got a really good quarterback and they improved the defense. So it's going to be good. So I guess the final game, we have to touch on tonight is the Oregon Lightning and the Washington Wolfpack. 2 teams that I think this is, honestly, I know it's week 2 and I know you don't like to overreact, but this is a huge game in terms of what season these teams are going to have, right? With Oregon and Washington. Who do you have winning this game and what is your final score prediction?
Well, it's gonna. I think I have to. I'm gonna have to go with Oregon, just because they showed the ability to blow the top off the defense even in a loss. They had a couple big plays last week against Billings. The Wolfpack, they played all right at times, but they just seemed out of sync a lot last week. I think. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with Oregon in. I don't know if it would really be considered an upset win, but uh, I see them coming out. I see them making some noise. 49-38 would be my score prediction.
Wow. 49 points. That would be something. I don't know what to think about this game. I don't know how to underevaluate. Like, it's really confusing to me. Ed Crouch is a huge move for the Wolfpack. Ed Crouch can play this game. Like, he might be out of shape, but he can move. He can make plays. Like, that's huge for them. And he has chemistry with Akil Greer from his time at Wichita. So, huge move, retain that chemistry. I love when guys link up on different teams. It showed their bond. I'm sure Akil played a huge part in getting Ed to Washington. I know people are going to say Adam Cruz, he played hurt. Adam Cruz is cool, right? I like Adam Cruz, but I like Ed Krause a lot too. So I think Ed Krause will be the starter tonight. J.R. Wells is trying to keep that under the vest. He doesn't want people to know, but Ed Krause will start. On the Oregon side of things, Dalton Cole, that receiving core is filthy in Oregon. That receiving core is really good. Marquise Sampson, Richie Anderson, Maurice Ashley, and they have Tyler Cooperwood, who hasn't even played, who was a real solid piece for your New Jersey Bearcats last year. So I'm really, really looking forward to this game. I think, I know people are going to say, oh, it's 2 bottom teams. I think one of these teams can emerge, right? They can emerge because they have the pieces. It's not like, you look at Oregon and Washington down the line, like down the board, they're not horrible, right? They have the pieces to be successful. And I think Oregon has a little more pieces than Washington does. And I think Oregon wins this game tonight. I think Brandon Tate and the boys come out and make a statement. I think I'm going to go with 35-20 tonight. I think Oregon takes control of this game. I think Ed Krause takes time to get adjusted with his offense. But I think Deshaun Williams, I have him going over 50 yards tonight. I think he's going to have another big game. So I'm really looking forward to this game. One thing I want to talk about specifically, and we can wrap the show up, about the Indoor Football League. And you look at other leagues. One thing I noticed is the high retention of players, right? Similar guys, kind of coming back year after year. What do you think that says about the league compared to other leagues like the NAL and the AF1 who have huge roster turnovers?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't read too much into it. The what it really states about the IFL is they did one thing right, and like if absolutely nothing else, which they do a lot of things right. But if there's one thing towards the top, their vetting process is good, and they bring in teams that tend to last more than just 1 or 2 years, because that's how you keep guys, by having teams not just kind of fly by night. They're here today, gone tomorrow. They're able to carry on for a number of years. I think the average team lifespan in the IFL was something like 4.2 or 4.5 years last time I looked. In every other league, it's like 1.8. So I think just the ability for franchises to last, albeit still only an average of a handful of years, it's still obviously a lot better than knowing if or the assumption if you go to like the NAL where they've had some tough team turnovers and not proper vetting where teams sometimes don't even last an entire first season. That's going to be a big contributor to it. Hopefully, the AF1 is able to kind of be more like the IFL in terms of that. They are, technically in their first year. Last year was, under, we'll just say different moniker, different brand. We all know how that went. So they came in this year. Hopefully they're able to kind of mimic the IFL over the next few years and honestly, hopefully the NAL is able to get their vetting process better too, because just the overall better product and longer lasting franchises any and all arena and indoor leagues can have, it just makes the sport more viable to fans and possible, investors and owners wanting to buy into it.
I'm going to get this question in the comments too. I want to address this. I totally agree with you. I love it, man. I love the IFL. Like, I try to, think about, oh, man, these leagues are no. Like, the IFL is lit. It's amazing. Going to the game last night, seeing how the players are dressed, seeing the referees in warm-ups. This is like 45 minutes before the game, going up and down, making sure everyone is following a dress code, a standard, right? Players appreciate that, right, from afar because it looks good. When a scout from the UFL and CFL is watching film and they see that, that's why guys get moved up, because they see that level of professionalism. You don't have guys running around wearing your semi-pro team jerseys, right? You don't have guys going around flashing guns, right? It's none of that. It's a standard, right? And I love it. And I was talking to one of my top defensive linemen last night. I was like, man, you had other offense. Why did you choose to come back here? He's like, I could never leave the IFL. He's like, I love the IFL even from a fan perspective. I watch the IFL when we have bye weeks. I watch the IFL because I enjoy the product, and I could never leave this product unless it's for the UFL, CFL. They're nowhere better to be than the IFL, and I completely agree with that. I think the IFL by far is the number one league, and I think it speaks to the connection that these fan bases. I look at San Antonio, right, with Don Rackler, and James Stubbe, what they built, right? The facilities, the fan bases, the military integration in the team, right? They do every little detail the right way. And that's why you can get a top player like Malik Henry. That's why you can get a top player like Sam Casanova. That's why Naquan Murray lived in Jacksonville when he came back, right? Because he appreciates how the organization treats him, right? I'm talking to DJ Meyer. DJ Meyer loves San Antonio. He loves it. He loves the fan base. He's like, that's probably one of the top fan bases I've ever played in front of, right? Just the way they treat me and everything, and I appreciate it. So you love to see it. Love to see it. And I think the IFL is only going to continue to get better. I said on the show, 4 weeks ago, there will be over 20 teams in 2026. I totally believe that. There'll be over 24 in 2026, 20 in 20 20 in 2026, 24 in 2027. So it'll be good. But I want to address this comment. I want to get your opinion on this, TJ, and then we'll wrap it up. Sorry about that. We had some technical issues. So Texas Pete, he's a huge San Antonio Gunslingers fan. I recommend you check out his content. I'm a huge fan of what he does. He said, what is your opinion of the IFL veteran rule change last year? Is this an important factor? TJ, as a coach, I want to get your opinion on this. Oh, I think.
Which which veteran rule?
I think he's speaking about the one where you can only have 7 players who are vets and over the age of 27 on the team for the IFL.
I mean, I kind of like the rule, just because that means no team can, in theory, have more than 7 purely established players. It helps the league not become necessarily so top heavy. But it also relies on you being able, as a franchise scouts, general manager coaching. It makes you have to be able to read talent and see and develop and help guys get better. And it also kind of sticks by the IFL's commitment to want players to move up. They don't want, every team to have, 30 something year old guys still playing in the IFL. They want to see that, improvement to the UFL, the CFL, the NFL, you know. So I do like the rule. For 7, I mean, when you figure the average roster on an arena team is only in the 20s, that's still a third of your team. So I don't think it doesn't necessarily, stop you from having going and getting veteran players or having to heavily think about it like that. Because honestly, a lot of arena teams, the teams I was on included, we wanted the younger guys because they were the hungriest, they were the scrappiest, they were, needing to prove something. So I think if nothing else, it just speaks more to the league's constant talk about player and league improvement because they want guys to move up and get to the outdoor game and make a real living for themselves in, the CFL and NFL, not spend their entire careers playing, indoor football.
Exactly. And I love my vets, right? I love my veteran guys. I think, vet is great. Like, CJ Kane, one of my boys, right? He's a vet. He's older, but I think he adds a lot of value. Players like him, they add a ton of value to the game, right? But the younger guys, man, they project so well. Like you said, those guys can move up to the CFL, UFL. The reality is a UFL team not coming to the IFL looking for a 30-year-old. I mean, that's just the reality of it. That's the way it works, right? Remember the whole thing with the UFL? We want guys under 30, right? They told my boy he was a 5-year NFL veteran. Nah, we can't take you. You're over 30. He's 31. He just turned 31, right? They don't want him anymore, right? And that just speaks to the younger guys. They project well. And I love it. I love, if you do it the right way, you can really build your team chemistry, right? If you do it the right way. If you have a certain number of vets and a certain number of rookies, those vets, they can teach the rookies so much about not even just like on the field, off the field. Hey, how you manage your finances in the 6 months, right? How you create connections, how you network, how you do all these little details that add up to bigger things in the future. That's what a veteran is there for. And I love the rule. That's another rule I'm a huge fan of. I think every league should have it. I don't want to make it sound like this, but you kind of lose motivation, after a long time, right? You're in this game. You're a vet who's been playing for 7-8 years. What do you have to prove, right? I mean, honestly, I know a lot of older guys, they like to play into their 40s, right? Older, but you lose motivation. Every player, even Brady, right? You lose motivation after time. So you want the younger guys, the hungrier guys. But I appreciate everyone. I know we're up to, 39 listeners, or 41. I appreciate Ducon. I see you in the comments. Appreciate everyone. I appreciate you, TJ, coming on this morning. And I'm really excited for tonight. I encourage everyone to tune in if you can by the IFL Network. I think we'll get more into that next week. I'm interested. I wanted to wait. I wanted to see, we get 3 full games on the IFL Network, how they look from a production standpoint. I know San Antonio is going to knock it out of the park, but I'm really looking forward to tonight's games. I encourage everyone to tune in, follow these leagues. Take advantage of the clip feature, too, on the IFL Network, right? Clip highlights, share them, promote your favorite players. You might, be part of them getting an NIL deal, right? Or a sponsorship deal. You can help your players advance. So you, the fans, play a huge part in it. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. I had a lot of fun this morning, and I look forward to tonight, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.